All right. So the agenda was we would begin by discussing course title starting points.
And it was really to kind of orient Kathy
Yeah.
about the foundation and what we do. And then these are kind of the more hands-on, I guess, points. So Chris.
Yeah, I had deferred to your to this meeting to talk about the theme and the title for both events, because I wanted it to be something that particularly since you guys are going to help us with kind of talking to donors and sponsors essentially to try to ensure that the event, particularly in the spring, is successful. And I don't want to make the mistake of not being very reflective and that we don't all agree that the titles that we go with feel like something that is competitive in the kind of event space right now. And so the initial thinking for the virtual symposium was that we would pick up some kind of theme around functional medicine, namely because that is a topic that a lot of folks who struggle with questions that they bring us on, supplementation and nutrition, could really use some time with experts around. And we thought that it would allow us to save in bringing someone in. If we now could do it virtually, we can still keep that theme. Because it's, if you're not familiar with the functional medicine space, it's like really the concierge style approach to how we determine the types of supplements that people need to use. And it fits into our major 4 pillars of Alzheimer's prevention. So that was kind of the thinking. We wanted, Kirti and I discussed that now that it is virtual, that we keep it rather short. Folks aren't doing the thing that they tried to do the first year of the pandemic anymore, where they're going to sit through a whole day conference online. That's just not realistic. And so objectively, short and sweet is kind of the best way, I believe, for that to go, because then it's not a lot of bandwidth for any of us. Doesn't require a tremendous amount of planning per se, because there's no logistics or in-person stuff going on, and still allows us to preemptively build some sponsorship relationships with our existing donors as perhaps a banner sponsor for that event, and kind of test drive, for lack of a better term, what it might look like to do a more formal campaign of trying to get donors engaged for March. Now, come March, the way that the events have always ran historically is there is some kind of live version of the certification course that we have ran. Last time we piggybacked it pre-pandemic into a kind of one-day symposium. So really these things were married over one single weekend. And we ended up to where everyone who signed up, barring like a handful of people for the course, stayed for that additional day. And that worked. We, in theory, could do another live one-day course, basically, of the actual training to attract new students and make it sort of worth our while to grow our brain longevity certified trainer group. But the real aim here is to obviously celebrate the big anniversary, to give donors an opportunity to engage with us, which historically we have not done all that well with in terms of in-person engagement with our donors, and to also really bring together our researchers, some of whom we have sponsored, their research, and they will gladly show up and, present the things that they've been able to achieve thanks to our support. So we could creatively title that anything we wanted. I don't know where the moving forward into the future together thing came from. Was that us? Lord, that sounds like I was working really late if I wrote that. Did I write that?
No, Dharma and I wrote it.
Okay, got it. Because it's a right, I love y'all. I can always be direct with that, with Dharma and Kirti, but it's a word salad right now. It needs, obviously, it's a placeholder title. we would need to clean it. But I really want us to, again, be reflective, to think about a kind of title or a theme that would pop, and that would get people excited to actually want to come to an event. So I'm curious, thoughts. I also wanted, Chelsea to weigh in on this too, in hopes that we could not only speak to what folks maybe in our existing graduate community would be interested in, or that would appeal to them, but also what we think just from a general competition of like in-person events, what you might think, Kathy, that we should take into consideration. Now I'll hush.
Well, I have a question. Do we know for sure that our 600 graduates know what functional medicine is? If we use functional medicine,
No, we would have to explain it. That's why we couldn't call it that, right?
okay,
They would have to learn that that's what they've come for post hoc, right? Functional medicine as a title isn't sufficiently a buzz phrase enough for people to know what the heck it means. So it's one of those things where it's like, they have questions about supplements and diet and nutrition and those kinds of things. And functional medicine has a voice in that and can answer their questions.
And so, Chris, so the theme of October would be functional medicine, and that's sort of their taste to bring them into March, and then we expand on that. So it is a different theme in March,
It would be different, yeah.
but we don't know what the theme of March is yet.
Yeah, it's still brainstorming. That was kind of what I had hoped to hear from you guys.
well, so one thing that I thought, my understanding was that October, because it's short, and I just go sort of like by big chunks. So I thought that October we would do, say, half a day, give or take. And the speakers will be Chris, Helen, Dr. Helen Labretsky, who has already agreed to be a speaker, and who by that time will have a number of papers, at least in the pipeline from our Pink Brain project. And then tied to that, we could do some interaction, some networking, some sharing, that it's become really clear that people want to participate and not just, be sitting there and watching a screen. So if we want to bring another speaker, that's fine. And then, so then that could be sort of like our October, a stepping stone to the March conference. And I thought that you mentioned that because our keynote speaker hopefully agrees, she's a functional medicine. So then the March.
Got it. I didn't track that. So we would pivot her from a virtual talk to doing an in-person keynote. Okay, I'm flexible. That's fine. But then that puts us back in a different orientation where now we have to think about what to call the symposium, unless we just call it a virtual brain health symposium. Which, it would be our semi-annual or biannual. It's biannual because we did it 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago?
3.
When was the last? It was 3. Crap.
Well, because of COVID, people understand.
That's a question. Like, Kathy, I'm curious, across associations and what have you, what did people do with this idea of like biannual or semi-annual events that they skipped? Are they holding on to that in the titles?
The groups that I work with are, yes. So, a lot of them have like the 75th annual, 76th annual, or biannual. And if there was an event hosted during the pandemic or the height of the pandemic, they did continue with following that sequence or, name pattern. But it is, funky if you do compare reports for each of those events and you see that large dip. But most of the groups I work with did continue with that pattern.
So then we could, in theory, get away with saying that it's our biannual symposium and that it's virtual. How would you feel about that, Kirti?
I'm good with that.
And then that frees us to really then banner the spring event. And then we can move on from this. Really as an anniversary event in which that we perhaps tentatively might do a live course at. So in other words, whatever moving forward into the future together, blah, etc. becomes, it's really the anniversary event with a course. It's not the symposium. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. What do you think, Kathy, Chelsea?
So from what I know so far, I think it sounds great. And I know, we kind of talked about wanting to highlight, this anniversary. So I think this would be great.
I was just thinking about for the in-person event, some of the things that I've heard from the graduates that they would be interested in. I don't know if this would be weird, but so many of them are wondering what they can do with their certification. So I don't know if we could have a session on how to market this, how do you present this information, or just tools that they can take after they leave, just to maybe they want copy or something for their website, or we can just like sort of give them a quick schooling on marketing. But there was some other topics too that came up that are sort of, we call them, beyond the pillars. So I don't know if we can get new research in more or expand on some of the things we didn't touch in as much with the modules.
You're thinking for content speakers for the spring, or are you thinking
Spring.
okay, all right, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Because if we only have half a day for October, right? That's the time frame we're getting it. So I figured if we are doing something and we want people to come in person, I know that marketing really grabbed a lot of people's attention and would probably bring people back, and maybe I don't know. I don't know if it would get new people, but that was the first thing that jumped in my mind, was just give them what they want.
Totally. Well, perhaps we bring in a keynote speaker who would actually help folks think through a way to take a public health curriculum and to operationalize it and to get it out into the world. I could give some thought to who would be a good speaker for that. Because we wouldn't want it to be like, how do I put this without being crass, but like, I don't want like a used car salesman type marketing person who's like schmuckety schmuck schmuck, like here's how you make it glittery and like sell your stuff. Like I don't want that.
Well, maybe we can even have like a networking portion where we have graduates present about how they used it and what
That would
worked
be
for
great.
them.
That would be
Yeah, and on
awesome.
that topic, Chelsea, that's a good point. A lot of groups that I've been working with have been focusing on that kind of those smaller roundtable style discussions. And so either if it's, a morning coffee or in between a keynote session, that seems to work really well, because I think what a lot of people really missed during the pandemic, as you mentioned, is still continuing in education, but really that learning from peers and interacting with peers and learning from each other was difficult virtually. So that would be a great idea.
Okay. Send me, Chelsea, then the ideas that folks are playing with on this beyond
Okay.
the pillars stuff. I'd like to see that. Let's talk about dates and hours. Curious thoughts on the virtual symposium. Do we go with Saturday or a Sunday, October 15th or October 16th? Do we feel like people would be more inclined to attend a half-day event on a Saturday or more on a Sunday? Thoughts?
I don't know the group as well as all of you do. My first instinct is to say Saturday, but again, your target audience a little better than I do, but
Right.
that's helpful.
What do you think, Chelsea? I think you would have a better pulse on attendance across various events and
I feel that we shouldn't mess with people's Sundays and they're more motivated on a Saturday. That's usually, I'm like, Sunday, don't bother me. So I can ask people though, I could just send out a quick poll.
Yeah. I think the reason this question was even crafted is because originally we were trying to do a 2-day event. And I had some ambivalence about, all right, now that we're collapsing it to a 1-day virtual, which day do we keep and which do we throw out? So I think it's fine to do it on the 15th. If there's consensus on that. I just wanted to not have to make that decision by myself.
It's fine by me.
So then we will go with Saturday, the 15th. And then as far as hours, when would be a reasonable time to start, knowing that we have people all over the country? And so from a logistics standpoint, if it's say a 4-hour experience, 3.5 hours, top, I don't know, 3 to 4 hours tops. That's it on the outer extremes. Should we start midday, early in the morning, so that you only ask for half of the day? Like, what do you think as far as start time?
So I do assist another client with, they have trainings every other Saturday. And they start at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And so that seems to work well. They did try initially last year when they implemented the training to start it a little later on, the East or the West Coast. And we've definitely seen more attendance for what it's worth, starting around 8 o'clock on a Saturday. Kind of intimidates some people, but 9 o'clock seemed to kind of be that sweet spot. And, that's only 9 to 11, 12 on the East Coast. So, it's kind of, they've had their morning, grab some lunch, and then participate in 4 hours.
Love that. So
We
9
could-
Pacific.
Yeah, we could do 9 and then maybe start a half hour early and do some yoga.
Perfect. So if there's early comers, they can do some yoga.
Optional, yes.
Optionally at 8 or
8:50
whatever.
or 8, yeah, 8 to 8:30, then we just get a tea, coffee, bathroom break, and we, start letting people in at 8:45. So it takes some time. And so 8 to 8:30 is like yoga or movement.
Perfect. And then
'Cause
their event.
our people are yoga teachers, so they love it.
Mhm.
Not all our people, but
Excellent. Okay, that was a decision. Look at us. So now in-person event has been confirmed for March 18th and 19th. The October speakers and tentative schedule, how long will it be? I say 3 to 3.5 hours tops. And so really you laid out Helen, myself, and a third. Was there a third? Who was the third?
I don't have a third at the moment.
Okay. If
But
this
we
just-
could do the, we could do the round tables. We could do the breakout. We could do
Yeah.
this.
Helen speaks for, 30 or 45. I speak for 30 or 45. That eats up 90 minutes. And then you take the other half for process-oriented interactive programming. So in theory, it goes from 9 to 12:30. And not a minute longer, because that way we're respectful of people's time.
Yeah, exactly.
Question for Kathy. Do we handle ourselves the IT side of a virtual event and the Zooming and all of that? Or do you guys help us with that?
We can execute that. We, can run the Zoom, do the breakouts, and be available for any technical issues, questions anyone has. We can also assist with monitoring the chat. But I would recommend maybe for Helen's discussion and then your discussion, maybe if that's something Chelsea or another volunteer can assist with, maybe the Q&A. Having someone more familiar with the content might be helpful, but all like technical, logistical things, we can absolutely handle that. And I can let you know if there's, anything that's kind of out of our scope, but we should be able to manage that just fine.
Got it.
Mhm.
And then, go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Absolutely.
And then, based on sort of your observations in the market, for a, 3.5, 4 hour event virtual, what would be a good benchmark price for continuing ed event online?
So we'll be able to get credit for the virtual event.
Yeah, we could get CEUs.
Okay, perfect. I'd have to do, and that might be something that I don't know if there are other similar educational events that you all have seen of a price point. I know for continuing education credits, I work with a few other groups that do offer that throughout the year virtually, and they do one large in-person conference. And they've charged anywhere between about $195 to $295. Again, I don't know if that's in line with other courses, your students would be interested in, or if that's in their budget. So I could do a little bit of research, but that's kind of what, around $195, $295, and is kind of what I've seen for that time frame.
Yeah, I would, to Kirti's note in the agenda, I think it would be important for us to scale it to where we create kind of tiers. If people are licensed healthcare professionals, it makes sense that they would come in around that price point because they're getting CEUs and that's consistent with the marketplace for them. But I'm curious how we would accommodate yoga teachers and folks who might be a little sticker shocked by a virtual event at that price point.
I have an idea.
Sure.
I was thinking of $99 for the virtual.
Okay.
Because it doesn't cost us much. We promise people a big discount if they were Scholar members. It's 3.5 hours.
Yep.
And we're using it as a stepping stone, right? So what we could do this is just a total brainstorming, but if we have, say, $99, and then we add CU fees. So those that want the CUs have to pay extra. We'd have to figure it out with, it's probably, I don't know. I just have to figure it out with our Cassidy.
Okay.
But really, like, even to this day, Chelsea, of all the people that have taken the course, the online course, which is 400 people, we've had maybe 5, not even 5 people have asked for the CUs, right?
You mean with Yoga Alliance or elsewhere?
No, the Art Cassidy,
yeah.
APA.
I just figured they did it on their end. I didn't know. I'm not really sure how it works, but
They
yeah.
they have to get the certificate through us and Art Cassidy.
Hmm.
So we've had, of all those, we just have a few. I mean, we can offer them, but what I'm interested in, so I think we should kind of strategically decide sort of like a base price and who it's for. And then we have, sliding scales, meaning, do we want to invite the public? Or is this exclusive to the BLTT?
Right.
And I mean, I would like to invite the public, and maybe the public pays a little more. to listen to 2 or 3 PhDs and so on, and MDs, maybe we add, I don't know. I mean, it's like, and then we usually have done before, at least, and we will do for the in-person event, is like, pre or early bird price, and then we have, discounted price, and then full price type of thing. So, and we can go, we can go a little lower, we can go a little higher than the $99, but anyway, that's kind of all the things I have in my.
Yeah, what we could do is just make that a base price, and then find discount codes if we needed for a push or appeal to Yoga Alliance or someplace else, or even IOIT. I do think that we try, because it's so easy for me to upload and request it, to get continuing ed for yoga therapists, because that's easy. Doesn't cost a lot at all. It's like 25 bucks maybe, or like $35. I forget the listing cost, but it's not expensive. Let's see. All right. Does that feel satisfactory then to everyone? Are we good with that?
Do we think that our people will pay $99, or do we want to say it's for those that are already scholars, it's $79? Let's say, I'm just throwing out idea, but we promise them a good discount.
Well, how much do we typically charge for the community in general for a 1-hour webinar? It's usually like what, $25? So if they're getting 3.5 hours, then
Well,
like,
kind
yeah.
of 4, right? With the yoga too, they get thrown in. It's like 4.5 hours.
True. Then yeah, I think giving the scholars a big discount to 75 and keeping it at 99 is perfect.
Because that would come
Let's
to
do
about
that.
$113 if we did the same price for webinars for this.
Oh, good. And then for the public, can we, and how do we invite the public? Anybody else? What's this pin to be able to do that?
Say that again. I didn't.
We want to open it up to the public
Mhm.
to attend. What's this pin? So
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, in other words, why would someone who doesn't already know us want to come to this?
And how do we justify for the BLTTs that all of a sudden there might be other people in the room?
Well, the BLTTs would want to come inherently because, their incentive is you get a discounted event with live access to our researchers, and you get real-time interactions with people who are doing brain longevity research. We don't usually offer that a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's intrinsic factors there. To the outside world, we have to be clever and flashy in the marketing of this to talk about it as a kind of a brain health virtual symposium, and we leverage the footprints of your speakers, meaning, you've got Helen, who holds, a pretty large, kind of imprint on the integrative geriatric psychiatric space, and is seen nationwide as kind of like one of the preeminent leaders. She wrote the darn textbook on it, right? So I think we leverage that in the marketing. I can get clever in how I present something novel enough to where it would pull from a general audience. But we just have to be sophisticated in the way that we sell who your 2 keynotes are. The
Would
yoga.
you want to speak, Chris? Sorry to interrupt you. would you want to speak about long COVID? I don't know if that's, an interesting topic, but I don't know.
My concern with that is that the only pull for it is the well worried who are scared of it. The reality is that, demographically, the percentage of folks with long COVID isn't going to be a large enough demographic to be interested in that. It's 30%, roughly speaking, by most of our sort of epidemiological estimates. So I don't know that that's a big enough of a draw.
I don't know if there's new research that we could talk about. I just feel like if we had an angle about like this is new research you need to know about, or anything that's happened in the last few years that people might not be familiar with, if we can make it sound urgent, or I don't know if there's anything new going on that we could talk to people about.
There's a ton of new research that we've been able to produce in the last year or two on the effects of trauma on brain health. And I could absolutely do a keynote on that.
Because people want to hear the new stuff, right?
Hmm.
I'm just thinking that people probably want to hear like the latest and greatest research. I'm just thinking, how do we make this exciting? I'm not into the research, so I don't know, but that's what I would want.
Yeah, if we pitch Helen through the pink brain stuff, because that's all brand new, and we pitch me through the trauma and the the effects of trauma on the brain, then those are both pretty hot topics that are relatively contemporary within the last year or two. And so if you've got a brain health symposium with like one of the key researchers at the world's largest trauma lab, me, and then Helen, who's running, the integrative geriatric lab in the country right now, that's a pretty big sell.
Mm-hmm. There is also one other person that it's been kind of in the back of my mind, and it's Dr. Newberg.
Andy.
I don't know, Andy, and I don't know if you remember in his webinar last year, he started talking about the effects of diet on the brain and how he had scans, and people flipped. It was, while because I watched it, because we recently went through that, Chris, and people were like, we want to know this and this. And he said, well, you can invite me back for another webinar on this topic.
Oh.
And if I could talk to him, we can talk to him, Chris. And if he can do something really sexy and interesting on that,
perfect. Yeah.
it might be really cool because he's an excellent speaker. He's really interesting.
Let's ask. And then you've got a trifecta.
Yeah.
And we just scale down then any kind of breakout group stuff to the end. We give him 45 minutes and we leave the other 45 or an hour for the breakout stuff.
Yeah. And then we do the breakouts, 3 breakouts. Mm-hmm. Helen, Dr. Walling, and Dr. Newberg.
Yep, perfect.
Okay, a couple thoughts. If we invite the general public, that could be really complicated with the breakouts, depending on how many people show up. I don't know. I don't know. I just imagine if we have we'd have to have so many rooms, or we'd have to have like huge rooms of people. So we just have to put it into consideration, and how long the breakouts would be. Because in my mind, I was thinking we would have breaks between each speaker, maybe, so people can go to the bathroom, or at some point there would be a break. And then I was thinking, well, maybe we have a 5-minute break here and there, but we could still have somebody on camera doing like one of those brain games or something. They can still be sharing tools. Um, but it, just as someone who has dealt with breakout rooms, it makes me nervous thinking about putting a ton of people in breakout rooms. Luckily, I'm not going to be the IT for this, so it's a big relief. But it's just something I wanted to mention. But I'm sure Kathy, you know more about that.
Yeah, and depending on the size, the total number of attendees, there'd have to be some structure, of course, to those breakout rooms, because if it does end up being 40, 50 people to each breakout room, and if you try to leave it as, open conversation, you may get a lot of people kind of talking over each other. So we can come up with some structure, and there's, some kind of fun platforms you can use for Q&A and interactive, kind of breakout format. So we could put some structure to it, but that's a very good point. If you do open to the public and you do get those large numbers, to kind of think about what the structure is of those breakout rooms. So we can kind of discuss that a little further if that's, the direction we go in.
Yeah, just something I wanted to put out there. And then another comment is, do you think we should have a price for the current students who want to come? Like a discounted price for them, or they would have to pay the full price?
So the people that haven't graduated yet, you mean?
Oh, I would think that we should, but it shouldn't be the same as the graduates, because that's part of the prestige of being a scholar member.
So you get like a $10 discount maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my last comment is maybe to get the grads excited about joining it, we could have a pitch for them about them being in the directory, or just like spend 2 minutes talking about why they're so great and where you can find them, and have them like come on and wave their hand, or grads comment in the chat what they do, or some way to make them feel recognized and seen, and give
Yeah.
them a boost. But they have to be here to get that recognition.
I'm really surprised that Zoom hasn't created a feature for conferences where people can actually signify what level of member they are, or what level of like designation they are for virtual attendance to an event. They haven't figured that out yet.
Not through like Zoom directly. And I think I've seen a lot of the platforms, of course, integrate with Zoom. But if we're just going to use Zoom, I don't know if it would be significant enough. We could encourage them to change their name to note graduate. Of course, it would like Kathy Herring graduate or something along those lines. And then recognize them, at the beginning or throughout, and maybe even throw up a slide that says all of their names or something along those lines. I know it also would be really nice. We also could, so it'd be a stretch, I don't know, but like create and offer them like a virtual background that they could use.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So because it'd be nice if they're in Zoom that you could have something like around the box of your, when you appear on Zoom. But we could send a virtual background if they want to use that, and that does highlight that they're a graduate too. So that's just something else I kind of thought of.
Totally.
Cool.
Yeah, I like the virtual background idea that we give them that for our new grads. That I think that's perfect. And we would send them instructions on how to upload it in Zoom.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm curious then, from your end, Kathy, what would be the best way for us to get going? How can you best project manage us in terms of the needs for deliverables and timeline, and like, can you handhold a little bit on how to best organize our process here?
Sure. Just to confirm, so the registration for both of these events, but kind of focusing on the virtual piece for October, that would be through Personify Wild Apricot. Okay, perfect. And is that something your team would build? Okay.
Yes, we can build it. Chelsea and us can build it.
Okay, perfect. So my, initial thought is that, of course, is kind of the first step. is building the registration and then the information on the website. And then once that's kind of compiled, we can put a marketing plan together, make sure we have speaker information, bio, headshots, we can start pushing it out on social media. And as far as the logistical side, for me, how many people are we anticipating for the virtual?
Well, depends. Did we agree that it's going to be open to the public?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, gosh, hard to say.
And does the foundation have their own Zoom account?
Yes.
Okay. And would you like to use that account to host the virtual piece? Just thinking, I don't know what account you have, but if you get over 100, assuming if you pay I think $14.99 per month, I think it allows up to 100
No,
attendees.
we have the 500.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yep, then we can go ahead and just use the foundation's Zoom account. But I'm happy to kind of put a timeline together, like a suggested just timeline, if that would work.
Mhm.
And just, it'll be high level kind of tasks and target deadlines. And we can kind of adjust there, but it gives us something to start with.
Great. Yeah,
think
I would
we're-
say let's aim for 200 people. Is that, what do everybody think? Is that crazy, or
Say again.
200 people?
I mean, if we did that, I would be like gobsmacked. I think it realistically will probably yield around 100 to 150.
Mhm. Okay.
And is there a goal to launch registration and start the marketing? I know our kind of rule of thumb is about 3 months out, but if your group and your target audience, if you feel as soon as possible is better, or if 3 months is too early and they prefer kind of more last minute, have you seen any kind of trends with that?
I would hope we would send out a save the date sooner than later. And that way we use that digital asset of the save the date on our websites, and we would put it on our social media, and then absolutely a 90-day lead for registration makes sense.
Is something that we could do sort of like video promos, like testimonials, even from us, just trying to get people excited? Could we submit those and then your team make them look very nice and professional? Is that something you guys do?
We can. I would say it's probably something you might want to outsource. And we do have a few vendors that we work with, but internally, our kind of skill set for video editing, we won't have like the nice like overlays necessarily and like the transitions. But we can absolutely, like, I have a few vendors that have like nonprofit or like foundation pricing. So if that's something you'd like me to quote, I can definitely do that.
Okay. Well, we might be able just to do it on our own, but I think it would be nice for them to see videos of us introducing it, or even on Instagram, easy Instagram videos, something.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would say, a lot of the attention span is usually about 30 to 45 seconds for a video. And I think a lot of people this day and age and that are active on social media don't really need the kind of, super flashy video. So that might even work well. And if it's like minor editing that you need, we can absolutely assist. If there's like, a long intro or something along those lines, we could definitely help with that.
Cool, thanks.
And then we need some graphic. So do you want us to take care of some graphic? It would be nice to have like at least like a virtual postcard type of thing, with the images of the speakers, the title, the date. Is that something that you can do, or do you want us to do? Because we basically will get, if we need people, we try to get volunteers through Catch a Fire. So
Yeah, I can, we could put a like, 2 designs together. And then, send it back for review and let us know kind of what direction you'd like to go in. But we can definitely design kind of a virtual save the date to be posted on the website and then used, for email marketing. And then we can take that same graphic and size it to different, I know you have a social media team, but they can either, we'll send the content to them and they can put something together, or we can size it so you can post it on, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those different platforms.
okay. Well, this is a good meeting, very active. What happened? I'm still here, yes. So does anybody have any more questions, comments, topics, item?
How soon do you think you'll be able to get us a kind of sketch of a timeline and whatnot?
Probably by, I'd say mid next week, if that would work. I would promise earlier, but my brain is a little mush. So like, I just want to say, realistically, I'll probably draft it earlier the week, review it, and then send it over, by mid next week or Thursday at the latest, I could send that over. And then for the save the date, we could start on that as well. If you have speaker headshots, or, what kind of an outline of content that you'd like to see in that save the date, we could get started on that right away too. So whenever you have that content ready.
Yeah, we could get that over to you. Kirti will have to reach out to Andy first to see if he's a go. So we'll need a few days to hear from him, but
Sure.
we could get that probably. She's got Helen and I, but we just need to know, and we have him too, but we need him to confirm first.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So we have the title, Biannual Brain Health Virtual Symposium.
Love it.
Okay, cool. ARPF or BLTT?
ARPF.
Okay, cool. All right, Kathy, do you have our logos and stuff, or do you need that?
I don't think I have
Okay.
any artwork. So as it comes to mind, you can send it over, and if details change or as that third speaker confirms, you can send it over all in one email or a Dropbox link, or send it as you have it. I'm okay with 5 emails, 1 email, 1 link, 5 links for me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll get that. I'll start on that timeline. And again, it'll give us something to start with, and then we can kind of build upon it and make changes, as you see fit, but at least give us something to start with.
Thank you,
you so much.
Kathy. Take good care, okay?
Thank you all so much. I hope to see you on camera next time.
Okay.
Until then.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a
Thanks.
good day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.